Hey everyone, and welcome to the next edition of the Into the Rift podcast, a Riftbound TCG podcast hosted by myself, Alex Coccia, and of course, my good friend, Joe Curley. Joe, we've got so much to talk about today because pre-Rift season is in full effect in China. We're going to be talking about the post-ban meta because we had some massive bans come down last week. And of course, you've been preparing a ton for Lille, and so we're going to talk about the Spirit Forge meta going into the tournament scene, and of course, to some degree, the summoner skirmishes, which are starting to happen this week as well. Joe, how are you, my man?
Yeah, really good, Alex. Obviously, you've played one of the very few people that's played the Unleashed sealed format already, and obviously pre-Rift, you have these pre-constructed decks, but then you get some sealed action in there as well. So excited to look at the decks, talk about which we think are the best, and also excited to talk about the Set 2 meta. I think even if people are not looking to play any more Spirit Forged, it's actually really important to see how the meta has shifted with these bans. I think no fight or flight, for example, has really changed the dynamic of a lot of matchups. Hold decks are making a big comeback, decks like Master Yi, Ari, I think. So yeah, really excited to talk more about that, but particularly interested in seeing what these pre-Rift decks look like, Alex.
Yeah, the pre-Rift that I had done at PAX East was a lot of fun. And part of the fun, too, was that, no one had any idea what they were opening. We had no information, no stats. We really had no idea what was going to be in these packs. We didn't know the legends. Well, now, finally, thanks to the release in China, we have much more information. I was fortunate enough to get the Master Yi, which I thought was played very, very well, honestly. In the XP mechanic, you just build XP, then all of a sudden your cards are just cracked. And I wouldn't surprise me, even when I was kind of briefing through the different Rift decks, I feel like the Master Yi might be really, really good. Looking at kind of the baseline, the pre-constructed kind of seeded pack you get. I mean, we're kind of just talking about it. Why don't we actually properly discuss it? But yeah, so we have, we should be starting, of course, every single pre-Rift does come with an Ashe, and this is going to be the promo card. Riftbound Sealed allows you to use the promo card in your deck building, which is really important because if you're, building yellow and you're like, I'm kind of short a card. Oh yeah, I have an Ashe I can use. You get to add it to your deck. It's kind of like a free rare card that you can use.
And it's a really good one. In sealed formats in other games, this kind of discard effect, which it sort of does, can be extremely powerful because card draw is quite hard to come by. So if you get Ashe down, you get rid of one of your opponent's cards. They can get it back later if they manage to hold. But if you can stop them holding, right? If you play Ashe, your opponent has one card in hand, suddenly they're in top deck mode, they draw a bad card, it's going to win you a lot of games. So actually it's a really important card to be extremely aware of. If you see that your opponent's playing yellow, you can probably expect that this is going to be in their deck and you need to play around it if you can, because it's very scary.
A couple other things too. It's the first time we've seen this pre-release tag on it, which is kind of interesting. I don't remember that being on the Yone, so that's kind of neat. I will also read it out because I know there's probably people in their car just leaving it on YouTube running and stuff like that. Ashe is it's yellow. It's also a 5 energy single power card with 4 might. It reads, when you play me, choose an opponent. They reveal their hand. Choose a card revealed this way and banish it. When they hold, return it to their hand. So it almost has an action type play where it's you get to return that card. But it really effective, very disruptive, which could potentially be a really nice addition to a sealed deck.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Mind Splitter and how competitive that card is in Constructed, right? Okay, Mind Splitter gets rid of it permanently, but it's also a lot more expensive. If with Ashe, your opponent never holds, it is just a much cheaper Mind Splitter, right? So if you can play this at the right moment, I think it's unbelievably strong. It could actually be good enough to see constructed play, I think.
Yeah, and holding's probably the hardest part of Riftbound, especially when you start to get a meta where I don't know what it was in my pocket meta. I felt like I was facing so many Lucians. And as a result, holding's hard against that amount of assault, right? And so in Riftbound, holding can be a challenge, but we're starting to get more and more effects, especially with these XP generative effects, where you can conquer, you get XP. When you hold, you get XP. So I think it's really important that we start to build strategies around holding. And you're right to identify Master Yi and the shift that's potentially happening even in the Spirit Forge meta, thanks to some of the bans that have occurred, right? And the reduction of that miracle play that might be problematic for people holding, where all of a sudden, hey, the board looks kind of soft, and oh wait, nope, they have a massive board and they disrupted me and they moved me off of the location or the battlefield, etc. So Yeah, there's quite a bit going on.
Yeah, Fight or Flight in particular going is so big for hold decks. Like, I think that was probably the most busted card. Like, obviously Cold Chop ridiculous, but the way that, like, I think Fight or Flight really just kept so many strong decks at bay, like hold decks. I think that holding has got a much, much better opportunity to pop off now.
Of course. Now, we'll talk more about the bans and stuff because we didn't actually get your full take on what the bans, like what your take on the bans was in the first place, right? Because, we had a special guest on last week, so I would like that take. But we'll kind of lump that in after we discuss the pre-riffs. Let's talk about the pre-riffs themselves. Now, we got a bit of a unique format here because we can't show all the cards at once, and we want to make sure that they're legible. And so there's always a card at the bottom, so I'll make sure that you see that. But first, let's start with the Vi Piltover Enforcer. And it's funny because I'm about halfway through season 2 of Arcane and I understand this card. You know what I mean? It was kind of like, at first I've been like, I don't get it. Why is she dressed like that? But now I do get it. Arcane is so good, by the way. It's just, it's been a factor of time. I've literally not had the chance to finish watching it yet, but I want to so bad. What an amazing show. I know this is a little off topic here, but I heard that like Arcane's done after 2 seasons, which is kind of sad for me because I don't want it to stop.
I think they're planning on doing like more stories though with like different characters. So
okay. So they're not like not doing anime anymore because it's so good.
I believe they're planning on doing others, but with like different characters. So it won't be like Piltover and Zorn, but it might be like some other areas, regions.
Oh, okay, cool. I'm way more excited now. That's cool. I'm happy about that. Thank you for that. So we have the Piltover Enforcer Vi. It reads, first of all, it's red-yellow. And it reads, when you conquer, if you assigned 3 or more excess damage, you may exhaust me to ready a unit. And this is one of the themes of the new set, this excess damage, right? There are a few cards that do this. It also comes with the Valley of Idols. Of course, it's sideways here. When a player plays a unit here, they may pay 1 to buff it.
And you can do that multiple times per turn. So it's an interesting battlefield. Like, I'm not sure necessarily it's the exact one I would want with a Vi necessarily, but like in Constructed, I'm already looking at this battlefield and can see some nice synergies there potentially. But Vi also, there's a champion unit in this one, Alex. It's the Vi Peacekeeper. 5 energy, 1 yellow power, and 5 might. And it has Ambush, which is this keyword that you can play it during your opponent's turn. And when I attack, stun an enemy unit here. So I think it's a really strong card, actually. I mean, like, there's a Leona, a yellow Leona, which does some stunning and is quite a good chosen champion, but you don't tend to see it outside of, like, stun decks. This one's got Ambush, which is obviously, like, it's a very similar card to Leona, but it has Ambush. So I actually like the look of the champion card quite a bit. I guess like the big question really for the pre-rift is you really want the legend and champion to be pulling their weight. I definitely think the champion does. Not sure how good the legend's going to be, but being able to ready a unit is obviously very powerful, but how easy is it going to be to deal excess damage? I'm not so sure.
So in the pre-rift that I had, so one of my good friends, Dexter, he actually got the Vi list, and he said that it was a little lackluster. He felt that like the list, like this particular deck didn't feel great. I will say though that because you have 2 Vi's, right? You have the one where you pay power to double its might, and then you have this one. I don't think this one sounds bad. I think this one actually sounds pretty good. I found that like in the last pre-rift, it's like the dev team knew like, okay, which is the weaker of the legends, and they kept putting the weaker of the legends in, right? Not the legend that you would actually be chasing in Constructed. With this one though, like I kind of look at it, I'm like, Vi Peacekeeper kind of seems cool. Now obviously we haven't had a chance to properly deck build yet with Unleashed, because especially with you, like you are literally prepping for a competitive tournament for Spearforged. But like this one, I think it passes the look test. I feel like this Vi Peacekeeper is legit.
Yeah, I like it too. I think it's a cool card.
Yeah. One of the cards I want to kind of talk about here is Sharkling. We haven't seen a card like this. I don't know what the word is. It's a 3/1 that gains Assault 4, which is kind of crazy. It also has Accelerate, so a highly aggressive card. Accelerate, you have to pay the energy and the power for. But like Assault 4 on a unit is kind of crazy.
It is, yeah. This card's caught my eye and Constructed in like an Annie deck because you're readying those 2 runes with Annie, and Annie's often playing Flash. So like I could see this being a really good addition to Annie and Constructed, right? You accelerate it in, and then of course the big downside is that it's stuck at the battlefield with only one might, but with flash, which obviously Annie can pull off quite easy. I think it could actually be extremely good, and I also think that for the sake of the pre-rifts, it's a really nice card to have like in your back pocket as like an accelerate card. Can definitely gain you an awful lot of tempo.
And I think one of the things to consider here is we have Arena Kingpin, which enters ready, and you can exhaust it to give +3 might, which conveniently is exactly what the champion is looking for. Not the champion, sorry, the legend is looking for. So there's a chance that you can set up a situation where that +3 might is the excess damage you're looking for to then re-ready another unit with the legend, which is potentially part of the idea behind this deck. We also have the Ultra Soft Poro that's just generating the bird tokens, which I know you like. And again, we have like these tap effects, right? Like you can theoretically ready the Ultra Soft Poro after you hit with excess damage, and all of a sudden you're starting to flood the board with birds, right? So I'm starting to see how like the deck is shaping up with not just using readied units to like just rush battlefields, but readied units to actually use their exhaust effects.
Yeah, and obviously this one is already yellow as well, so you can add in that promo card immediately as well. So you've almost got like an extra card with this one right out the gate. And of course, for those people that aren't familiar, Alex, could you like run through the deck building restriction rules for these?
Yeah, of course. Thanks for putting me on the spot. I got to remember. I'm just joking. I played enough sealed. So yeah, you get to use 3 domains, which is awesome. You don't have to match your champion unit to your legend, which is kind of cool. They don't have to have the same name. But if you, for instance, choose not to run a legend or not to run a champion unit, you get to draw 1 additional card at the start of the turn. You are building a 25 card deck. There is no restriction on the number of individual copies of any individual card that you can have. So if you happen to draw 15 Ultra Soft Puros, you can use them if you want. You would never actually draw that much, but there's no restriction. But yeah, that's pretty much the Cole's notes of it.
And how would it work with like runes as well, right? Let's say like I want to add like a blue power cost card into my Vi deck. Would I need to have like pulled the blue rune to be able to play that? I guess I probably would.
Yes, you do. You still need to actually be able to pay the power costs. There's no like universal rune in sealed or in constructed for that matter. So yeah, you still have to pay the power costs. People often like try to figure out like, okay, well, like even in this deck here, right? You look at it, you need at least 1 red. You need a couple red runes. You need a couple of the yellows, and maybe if you're like, well, you look at like whatever you pull, you're like, okay, I got some blue, and just don't put power for blue. Like don't put cards that require power there, and you could do like a 6/6 here, 6 of each color. Or if you really want to be, I'll tell you right now, in my experience playing sealed, going 4/4/4 has always felt like I never have enough runes for my stuff. Like it always feels like, oh, I want to do this. Oh, look at that. I'm short a power rune for red or whatever. So you often try to build around like the power rune requirement. And for instance, like in this given case, like if I can add a color that has good cards that don't require the additional runes, like I would try to chase that. But if you have to, you have to. Like, what are you going to do? It's sealed. Everyone's playing with a bit of a scuffed deck, and that's kind of half the fun.
Yeah, it's actually like a really easy thing to underestimate when you're building the deck, right? Like the rune limitation, but it's something you have to consider quite heavily. There's a card in here, Alex, which is caught my eye, which is the Carrion Dredger, because it's an artwork from Runeterra. It used to be like played in a Jinx deck, but now it looks like it's joining Vi. But it's a 2-drop with 1 might, and when it dies, you get a 1 might bird token. So again, going quite wide. You've also got like Inferna as a 2-drop, which has Ambush and Assault 2. So you've got some like really interesting early curve, even like the 3-drop Black Rose Dignitary with Death Knell, Channel 1 Rune Exhausted. So you've got a little bit of ramp in there as well. Yeah,
so this deck overall, solid. It's not the one that like I would be chasing. Not that you chase, you just get it, right? I would like to see this Peacekeeper in action though. In the game that I played, I actually played against someone who's running this deck. I never actually saw the champion unit. Would be interested in seeing how that would play out overall.
And of course, the other thing you could do, Alex, is you could pick a different champion, not named Vi, for your champion zone, and then have this Vi Peacekeeper in your hand, because that ambush becomes a little bit less predictable when it's in hand as opposed to the champion zone, right?
Of course, perfect call out there. And then we have Khazix the Void Reaver. The legend reads, when you win a combat, gain 1 XP. And then when you spend 1 XP, you can buff a unit, or you can spend 2 XP to move an exhausted friendly unit from a battlefield to its base. It comes with Ripper's Bay. When a unit When a unit here is returned to a player's hand, that player may pay 1 to channel 1 rune exhausted. I got to practice reading sideways, unfortunately. So yeah, we have the Khazix champion unit, which comes with the seeded pack. Now, of course, these are the seeded packs, right? So, this is something with sealed we should have mentioned when we were talking about the rules. These seeded packs represent 15 cards, and then in the 5 packs you get in the pre-rift, you then fill out the remaining 10 cards, right? So you do get this plus 5 packs. In regular sealed, it's 6 packs, but here you get 5 packs because you already started with a seeded deck, by the way.
Yeah, and can you, like, if there's like a card that you really don't like the look of, are you allowed to replace cards from this? Like, I don't think you have to include
You don't
these,
have
right?
to use this. I remember in my first pre-rift for Spirit Forged, I don't remember what I pulled, but I ended up in my packs getting like Azir, the champion unit, a Rise. I was like, okay, I'm playing Azir now. Like, what are we talking about, right? So I didn't even use any of the cards that I pulled. They weren't even of the same color. It was kind of hard to build that deck, admittedly, because I was really short on cards because you're kind of 1 pack short. But overall, it was still a lot of fun. But yeah, Khazix Mutating Horror. It is the champion unit. It's a 4 cost, 4 might with 1 power cost. It reads Ambush. When I attack or defend, if an enemy unit is alone here, give me +2 might this turn and gain 2 XP. So we do have some XP gain occurring here. You'll notice that this is very much an XP deck because of the legend. Joe, a lot of XP being happening here and a lot of interesting cards as well. Is there anything that catches your eye? You can't just talk about Megatusk, by the way. I know we love Megatusk.
We do love Megatusk, yeah, the walrus. My girlfriend actually asked me like yesterday. She was like, "Are there any new seals in Unleashed?" Because of, obviously there was like the overnumbered ones, and I was like, "No, but there is a walrus on Megatusk." So yeah, the deck like XP, I'm still yet to be convinced by, but I could actually see XP. While I'm not convinced for it in like constructed play, we'll have to see. I'm definitely like curious about how it might play out in sealed. I can imagine it might have a little bit more success. It's quite hard, isn't it, to get like a ton of synergy going in a sealed deck, but these pre-rift decks help you to do that. So you've got like a 2-drop that gets you XP. You've got this Mr. Root, which is when I move to a battlefield, gain 2 XP, and it also has Accelerate. Crowd Favorite gets XP. The Insightful Investigator is a card I really, really like, Alex. When you play me, choose an opponent, they reveal their hand. You may pay 2 XP to choose a card from their hand. If you do, they discard that card and draw 1. Like, you get rid of your opponent's promo card that could discard one of your cards. That sounds quite valuable. This Insightful Investigator, also like the information you gain from this card should not be underestimated in sealed, right? Like, you really don't know what your opponent's going to have often. So that information can be really valuable.
I'm actually interested on your take on the Hunter's Machete because it's one of those cards I've looked at and I'm not sure if I like it because I think there's better equipment in this set, but it's a 3 cost and it reads, it gives you +2 might, and when I conquer or hold, gain 1 XP. But 3 cost for +2 might is off rate, and I understand the conquer and holding for generating the XP, but I don't know if I want to pay for that because if you're getting a weaker item or weaker equipment, right, from a might standpoint for its cost, it's actually harder to hold or harder to conquer. So this is one of those cards I've read and I'm like, man, I don't know if I like Hunter's Machete. It just feels a little too off rate, and even attaching it feels like you're compromising your ability to conquer or hold because like you're committing so much to it. If you do happen to have like extra energy and you're able to get it done, like cool, but it just seems expensive.
Yeah, it is expensive, I agree, but like one thing that's worth considering is like there's probably not much gear removal or equipment removal that's going to be around it in these pre-rifts, and you can like utilize this like multiple times per turn. Like if you're like in the late game and you've got a ton of runes available, that equip cost isn't going to be as much. So I could see it being like reasonable, but I do totally agree with your assessment.
Yeah, one of the challenges I think with like equipment-based decks, like I was playing a little bit with Jax, which I thought was really fun, but I played a ton of Azir, is that like it feels like you have to win your first game because their second game and third game they're bringing in the sideboard, and it's all just hate, item hate, tech hate. Now that might change a little bit now. Like we're probably seeing less pickpocket. We'll talk about that later because of the changes that have happened, but overall, it's like you are right though. In sealed, there's going to be far less gear hate because they can't, there is no, first of all, the entire deck is your sideboard, but they don't have access to Spirit Forge cards. They don't have access to Origins cards, which was kind of funny because I actually had a conversation with somebody where we're playing in we were playing in the pre-rift, and I hid something, and they were like, "Oh, it could be this and this," and they were like listing off like Origins and Spearforge cards. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, well, no, because it's sealed and we don't have access to those cards, right? But anyways, but yeah, like in this particular deck, it looks like the whole premise is to really get the legend moving. In the Master Yi deck, it's about like amassing XP. Whereas with this deck, it's more about like generating incremental XP and using it to buff and protect units by pulling them back to your base. So like the XP generation is significantly lower. It's less of a focus. It's more about like if you have 1 or 2 XP, then the engine's still moving, which I kind of appreciate.
Yeah, and I also think the legend is actually giving you a really nice way of spending this XP, right? Like a buff isn't the most amazing thing, but it is still +1 point, which in sealed is probably worth a lot more than it is in constructed. And also like that ability to recall one of your units from battlefield to base is something that's extremely strong. So I actually have a feeling this one will be quite good in sealed.
Yeah, it certainly will be, I'm sure. And let's move to Jhin. Jhin, the legend unit, is a red-blue, is, I should say, a fury and a mind. When you play a spell, if you spent 4 or more, you may banish it. Then, if there are 4 spells banished with me, put each in its trash and channel 4 runes and draw 1. That was the most dramatic way I could have read the legend there, but
it's written horribly. I still can't.
It is kind of written terribly. But yeah, like it's kind of like a high cost but very high reward, right?
Uh-huh.
So let's see how this actual. Do I have to read the sideways? I have to read the sideways.
I can get it.
You're gonna try and get this one?
Yeah. So it's Forgotten Library. While you control this battlefield, when you play a spell, if you spent 4 energy or more, predict, which is look at the top card of your deck, and you may recycle it. So there's some nice synergy there. I mean, immediately, Alex, of this deck, of course, we'll look at the champion afterwards, but you look at the legend and you're like, okay, how many spells do you actually have in this deck already that cost 4 or more? And the answer is not many, which kind of surprises me. You've got Deadly Flourish, which is a 4-cost blue spell, deal 3 to an enemy unit. When it dies this turn, play a Gold Gear token Exhausted. Gold Gear probably quite valuable in sealed. You can also target things at the base of this. You've got Square Up, which has Repeat. And in order to repeat it, you discard a card from your hand, give a unit Assault 4 this turn. And then finally, the Sprite Burst. Play 2 ready 3 Might Sprite tokens with Temporary. That is a cool card. Sprite Burst I like a lot. But, I mean, you need 4 spells banished by Jhin Virtuoso, and you've only got 3 to begin with, which seems like a tall order to actually even get any value off of this legend whatsoever. So the champion needs to be good, Alex. For like, I would say I'm almost convinced if you get Jhin, you might be better off playing without a legend and just having 1 extra card in your opening hand. I'm almost convinced of that.
It's entirely possible that's correct. In fact, looking at this, I wonder why. Like, they obviously handpick which legends they're going to be kind of incorporating into the pre-rifts. I wonder why this one made it. Because, I mean, it's not impossible, but you just don't have that many options. And can you really round it out with sealed in the sealed decks without also compromising your game plan? It's like, it's a very expensive deck, right? And you're going to have to add like relatively inexpensive cards. Like, you only have here 1 2-cost unit in the Iceveil Archer, and that's not anything to get excited about, right? So it feels like you'd have to kind of round out your curve a little bit while also trying to focus on getting something expensive to actually activate the effects. So like, yeah, it seems like it's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. Like, it feels like the kind of deck that I'm not convinced is going to play well in sealed.
Yeah, I agree. What I will say though, Alex, is the chosen champion is exceptional. The Jhin Murderous Artist with Deflect and Ganking, and when I move, add an energy and a power. So it costs 4 energy, 1 red power, and 4 might. But if you move it once, it gives you back 1 energy and 1 power. So I think this is an exceptionally good chosen champion. It looks like as well all the chosen champions in the pre-rifts are like epic rarity, or are they just alt arts? Is it just an alt art? It might just be an alt art.
I'm not exactly sure, and the gem is being covered there, but yeah, that's a good question. I'm glad that they've improved the pre-rifts and actually even the starter decks. We have to talk about that at some point too. We got to get those starter deck stats and what's in them, because they did make a significant improvement from Origins to Spirit Forge with the starter decks. So that's nice. I wonder if that continues. I'm not even sure. Do we know what the starter deck heroes are for? We must. They must have told us, right?
Yeah, I honestly don't know. Okay, so it's a rare. Jhin Murder Assaultus is like usually a rare, like one down from Epic, but it is the alternative artwork. So that it looks like all of the pre-rift decks, you get the rare champion, but it will be an alt artwork, which I think is a nice compromise. Like you're not getting the Epic, but you are getting a alt art, which is pretty cool.
I'm almost positive they announced the starter deck. I'm just scrolling through the announcement that we went through before. I don't actually see it. No, they actually discussed the box. What's it called? That box.
The vault.
The vault. Yes, it was the vault with all the stuff. Yeah, so I don't actually see. It's got to be out there. I can't believe we don't know that. We'll discuss it next week. That's cool.
I've found on Google Images there's a Vi and there is a Vex. Vi and Vex, it looks like.
Okay, cool. I don't think I knew that. I'm not sure if they announced that or not.
I didn't either. Nope.
And actually, on that note, if you're wondering why we're not sure, the actual official release in China is going to be April 10th. So the pre-rifts have begun, but the actual product doesn't hit the shelves until April 10th. What's it today? It's not April 10th. It's April 6th. So we're still a little bit off from that. Worldwide release is going to be May 8th for Unleashed, and the preview season for us is complete, of course. But our pre-rift begins May 1st. So May 1st is pre-rift for the English language and for NA and for Europe. So long story short, I want to just highlight here that obviously the chosen champion here is insane, and we're concerned about the cost. And he definitely does kind of improve the cost of the cards by providing both a power and an energy, though himself requires that additional power to be drawn down, which is going to cause you to kind of fall a little bit behind on your runes. But then from there, it's kind of just free real estate. But I want to just highlight Square Up, which I think is a fantastic design. I really like the idea that the repeat is not just something related to energy. You're repeating by discarding, which I think is really cool. And again, I'm wondering if that's going to be something that can be used in other archetypes as well. Sprite Burst was a card that we did not have in our initial reveal. That was revealed later on. And it's going to work really well with like LeBlanc in those temporary style synergies, which I'm wondering how good they are. The more I look at LeBlanc, I'm like, is this going to be like one of those like high rolly, like, oh, I hit the nuts or I completely fall apart. I'm not sure, but I'm really interested in trying LeBlanc, and I think Spirit Burst is going to be a major part of that. Now we get to move on to a deck that I know very intimately, because this is the pre-ref deck that I got to play, and it's the Master Yi. And I have been staring at these cards in my hand for a while, and I've been like, you know what? The more I think about it, the more I think that this might be one of the decks to pull. Let me explain why. Okay, first of all, it's Master Yi. At levels, he's green-orange. At level 6, your units get +1 might, which is not insignificant. And at level 11, your units enter ready, which is literally cracked. But what you can see here is already from Khazix, you're trying to accumulate mass XP. Khazix is all about like having incremental XP. This is about accumulating mass XP. The battlefield is the Gardens of Becoming. Units here have Exhaust Me to gain 1 XP. Okay, kind of cool. Let's talk about the actual deck itself. I'm trying to move it. Here we go. There we go. Sorry, we're kind of, this is editing on the fly here. Let's talk about the champion unit, Joe, and then I'll give you the floor. Champion unit is Master Yi Tempered. He has Hunt 2, so when he conquers or holds, it gains 2 XP. He's a 4/4, no power cost, which is great. We've seen so many times before, Legends at 4 power, at 4 energy without a power cost. They are just boons to these decks. Like they're fantastic. And even the power cost sets you back a bit, but at least we find that like 4 cost is kind of like the sweet spot for the Legends in my opinion. But like Hunt 2 is fantastic, gaining 2 XP on Conquer and on Hold. At level 6, he gets Deflect and Ganking. In my experience, he feels vulnerable at 4 might. But you cannot deny how good this is as an early tempo play to start getting the ball rolling on your XP.
Yeah, especially if your opponent can't answer it early, I imagine you can really snowball with this card, right? Like it gets you like more XP, and then all your other cards are going to be better as a result as well. So if your opponent like can't stop you holding, you gain 4 XP off Master Yi by the start of your next turn, which is going to put in a lot of work, right? Like if you get to level 6, everything else gets +1, which sounds really good.
Yeah, and we were discussing the Hunter's Machete prior, which was a 3 cost +2. This one here is the Soul Sword, kind of a bit of a mouthful. It's 1 cost for 1 might, but if you have 3 XP, it's actually 2 might, so it's a 1/2. And when you consider that you can attach to Master Yi or pretty much any of these that have hunt kind of commands, it really shows that like that Hunter's Machete just kind of pales in comparison to the Soul Sword. So what I was often doing was I was often attaching the Soul Sword to the Master Yi to kind of make him a little thicker. And then you're often getting a first step up towards getting that XP just by conquering right off the bat with Master Yi anyways. But pretty much everything here, even something like the Herald of Spring, which is a 4 cost 4 might for 1 power, which isn't that impressive. It simply has hunt, and it has, when you play him, you gain 2 XP. The thing is, though, is if Master Yi is holding or defending, or if he's about to attack because he's readied, you play a unit like this, and then Soul Sword all of a sudden gains that extra might, and then Master Yi is able to have that much pushing power. I felt that this deck had 2 things going for it. 1, very steady XP accumulation, and 2, once you really start to accumulate the XP, a lot of the secondary effects felt absolutely insane. Specifically, Skyward Strike. Skyward Strike is 2 energy, 1 power. You get to move an enemy unit, which is already powerful, right? But at level 6, you can also stun an enemy unit. So you could literally bring a unit in and have them stunned and then wipe them. Or you can move a unit out of a battlefield and stun the other one remaining to make sure you trade favorably. It is an absolute superpower in these XP decks. I think Skyward Strike is legitimately insane, Joe.
I can so see it. Like I've been in set 2, I've been getting charmed left, right, and center by Aurelia at the moment. Like Charm is such a good card, and I'm even just looking at this card in Constructed. I'm like, is there going to be some deck which is like going to play triple Skyward Strike, triple Charm, and just like have that as like their whole strategy? It's a really interesting card. I'm curious, Alex, like what color you paired with orange and green in the end.
I went with yellow because I actually pulled another Ashe from my pack. So I had 2 Ashes and a couple just like good cards to use there. So I did orange, green, yellow, which was totally fine. But I didn't have enough yellow cards that like helped with the XP generation. And one of the things I found is that if I didn't generate XP early and rapidly, I fell behind. And once you fall behind, like even something like Concentrate, which on paper, right, which is a 5 cost, draw 2. At level 6, it costs 2 less. At level 11, it costs 4 less. So it's 1 cost to draw 2, which is literally insane. I was often not playing it because I was either so far ahead that I didn't even need it and I had other ways to close out the game, or I was behind and I was paying a fortune and I just felt more behind. So Concentrate was one of those like win more, lose more cards in my limited play test, which I thought was kind of interesting because on paper I was hyped up for Concentrate. I thought it was an amazing ability to draw. But like in this deck, it's all about generating that XP. But again, I want to just fixate on the fact that the Khazix XP generation is so incremental, whereas this one's trying to amass it. And once you amass it, you get the ball rolling in a way that is very difficult for your opponent to actually kind of to deal with. And I'm starting to wonder if a constructed Master Yi is going to be a bit of a menace in the meta, because it feels like a deck that A, builds itself, and B, if you can get that early momentum with XP, the effects are crazy.
Yeah, I also like wonder if there's like some strategy that might prove to be good in Riftbound at some point, which is like you hold all your XP, you build like this massive XP base, and then you find some way of like spending all that XP to like finish the game, right? Like if there's a card that's like pay 12 XP and win the game, obviously like probably won't be designing quite that way, but it's going to be really interesting to see how XP decks like develop as we get more cards in future sets as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And stuff like combat experience, right? It goes to show you how this XP really amplifies the skills. Combat experience is a one energy reaction speed spell that reads, give a unit +1 might. Okay. But at level 6, it's actually +3 instead for the turn. If you think about what you're paying for something like what's the assault 1/3? Oh, why am I forgetting? Battle Axe. Cleave, that's right. It has a picture of a battle axe on it. It's Cleave, battle axe. It's been a while. I have not played Cleave in a bit, considering the tools that we got in Spirit Forge for Blood Rush specifically. But combat experience is basically just a straight up better Cleave at at level 6 because it can be used defensively as well as offensively, which obviously Cleave has Assault, cannot be used in a defensive manner. So that level 6 all of a sudden unlocks this absolutely insane 1-cost trick at reaction speed. Like, all of these are just absolutely crazy once you unlock the XP, and you're not really spending it either, right? Mm-hmm. That's the other thing. You're not really spending it. You're just accumulating it in this particular deck.
Yeah, I do wonder if there's like if you can get one card or a couple of cards in your deck to spend the XP, if that could be a good strategy, but you definitely need to like stay above a certain threshold, right? But I imagine that like at some point, like obviously if you get to level 11, your unit's into ready, which is like a really good threshold. What was your experience in like how much XP did you sort of like manage to get to most games?
So I went 2 and 2. I played 4 games. And in the games I lost because I had very poor draw at the start, got no momentum happening with XP. And as a result, I fell constantly behind and I couldn't get the ball rolling. I remember one game I had my Master Yi champion unit removed relatively early. And as a result, I felt like I just lost all momentum. The games that I won, I got well over 11 XP, and my opponent literally could not do anything to match the value I was generating from the cards I was playing because everything was just cracked, right? Everything was like, even the Moss Stomper, like all of a sudden it has additional might and deflect just because I'm at 3, which is not hard. So yeah, like it was one of those decks that I felt like in Sealed was very snowball-y, but I felt the power. Like once you had the XP unlocked, it felt borderline unfair, especially with the combat tricks. It's also worth noting Skyward Strike is a spell speed. It's not reaction and it's not a action. It's just so everyone knows. So you can't use it. You have to use it kind of proactively. You can't use it like within showdowns. Just one thing I want to mention there that kind of makes it seem. I kind of framed it as this is absolutely broken spell, but the fact that it's a spell speed does limit its utility. So be aware of that.
It's still really good.
It's incredibly good. So yeah, came away really impressed with the Master Yi pre-rift. If you open this, I think that you're laughing. It's looking pretty good. Then we have Diana, Scorn of the Moon, and it is a mind and chaos. I'm trying to use the right stuff. Blue and purple, mind and chaos. The legend reads, reaction, exhaust me to add 1. Spend this energy only during showdowns. The battlefield is Abandoned Hall. When a player plays a spell, they may give a unit they control here +1 might this turn.
This battlefield is so terrifying for constructed, Alex. Like,
yeah.
I saw like Riftbound Twitter was talking quite a bit about it, like saying, where is the once per turn riot on this card? Like Aurelia is going to do some disgusting things with this, I think it's fair to say. And the legend as well, I think is really good. Obviously, you've got Ezreal and Teemo. Ezreal, I think it's fair to say, lost a lot of its juice with Cold Shot being banned, because obviously like Ezreal as the chosen champion, like synergized so nicely with Cold Shot. So I do think that Diana is probably like front runner for like the best Chaos and Mind legend heading into set 3. Yeah. So I think you're going to be really happy to have this as like as a legend. And then the chosen champion is Diana Lunary. When a showdown begins here, you may pay 1 energy. If you do predict, which is looking at the top card of your deck and either leaving it on top or putting it on the bottom, then reveal the top card of your main deck. If it's a spell, draw it. So gives you a little bit of card draw potentially. It's a 3 for 3. With no power cost, so it gives you like some really nice consistent curve, which I think is a really nice thing to have in Sealed in particular.
Yeah, and again, like having a useful champion, I think is very valuable here, right? In Sealed, you often have the opportunity, as I said, it's often better to not play a champion, to draw that additional card. But in these kind of seeded packs, like because you have the legend and its champion, like it almost feels so natural. I really like the way these pre-rifts are designed, because like straight up Sealed feels even more scuffed than this. At least these provide like a baseline identity for the decks that you're playing, and so that you can get more of the intended experience. And I think Diana does do a lot to capture that with the way these two legends and the legend and the champion do synergize.
Yeah, the card that's really caught my eye, that is a card I would love to play in Sealed, is this Bewitching Spirit, 3 energy, 2 might. When you play me, choose a player, they discard 1. I think that's an exceptionally good card. It's a card I'm actually really interested in trying out in Constructed. Like if you play this like in Ezreal, for example, you can use like Arcane Shift to replay it, trigger its ability, like make your opponent discard their hand. I've got a bit of a reputation for being a filthy discard player in Disney Lorcana, and this card looks extremely good. So it's one that I would definitely want to be keeping in my deck. There's a lot of spells in this one, which is obviously something you're going to want to keep if you are playing this Diana Lunary Champion unit, because you're going to be getting some draw off of that. But you are not on many units as it stands, so that's something you need to be cautious of as well.
Yeah, and I think that like even something like Lunar Boon is kind of an interesting card. Expensive, but you can for 3 you discard 1, then draw 2 at reaction speed. I find it to be an interesting card. I don't actually read that as being particularly powerful, but I'm wondering if there's a synergy that we're not seeing here that makes this more viable than not.
So the best use case for Lunar Boon would be if you have only Lunar Boom in hand. You are paying 3 to draw 2, because you can discard 1. If you have 0 cards, you will still draw 2 cards. So it is quite expensive. Like if you compare it to Ezreal, right? Ezreal has the same effect. Obviously, it's not a spell card, and it costs a power, but you get 3 might for the same effect. So it is quite expensive. But at the same time, paying 3 to draw 2 isn't too bad. So if you can empty your hand, it's a really powerful way of drawing cards. And maybe there's some other synergy in there as well, something I'm not considering. But it's definitely not spectacular, but it is interesting. Like reaction speed as well. I guess you can use it in a showdown, right? And then with the Diana, you're able to almost pay 2 for this, because you can use your Diana Legend to get that 1 extra energy you can only spend in showdowns, and then suddenly Lunar Boom in the middle of a showdown sort of costs you 2, right? Like if you had no other use for that Diana. So yeah, it's not bad, especially if it's the last card in hand. It is basically drawing you 1 extra card.
And the the reveal of Moonlight Affliction happened after the last time we had spoken. It is a 7 cost reaction speed spell that reads, give a unit -10 this turn. I'd be interested in your take. That is a bizarre skill, but also potentially terrifying depending on the situation.
Yeah, I think especially in sealed, right? Like a lot of the times in sealed, it can just be about like amassing a big guy, like just a very mighty unit. And this would be a good way of countering that. But it is very, very expensive. So you're going to be feeling really sad if you use this and you're not able to do much with it.
Yeah, but I look at that card and I also think about like Call of the Week, which also does a fantastic job of destroying rather large individual units. Of course, assuming your opponent does not have other tokens or anything that they can kind of sacrifice instead. But yeah, I don't know if that's going to be meta relevant, but still an interesting design nonetheless. And of course, Walking Roost is going to generate birds for your opponent, which is kind of interesting. And it makes me wonder if you always have to have a couple birds stacked in your deck box, because or do you just have to bring birds for your opponent when you're playing Walking Roost?
Yeah, true. There's like a few really good spells in this one for sure. Like Existential Dread is sort of like a hybrid between a stun and a rebuke. I think that card's exceptional. Abandon is like the new counter spell. Crescent Strike, deal 4 to a unit at a battlefield and then 1 to all other units there. Is really, really good. And also this Star-Crossed card is brilliant. Return a friendly unit and an enemy unit to their owner's hand. So this one, I think, like particularly that Existential Dread and the Star-Crossed card are like unbelievably good, and are probably like the main things that you're going to be looking to utilize. And yeah, Existential Dread plus Diana, like the fact that she's giving you that 1 extra energy during showdowns, it's almost turning your like Existential Dread into something that costs 2 total and 1 power to return something to your opponent's hand, which is like really, really strong.
I just covered ourselves by accident. I don't know if you saw that. That was not intentional.
I saw nothing.
I made a mistake, so I can't even fix that in post. Whatever. We disappeared for a sec behind this extremely blurry graphic, because this one, we were making the decks so that they could be like clear like the other ones, and then the site stopped working. Yeah. So we had to like just find something. We value your ability to read the cards on the podcast. But for Ivern here, who is one of the cards I am most excited about. I don't know if Ivern's going to be good, but I want Ivern to be good so much. So much do I want Ivern to be good. And so we have the deck list. We don't have the we don't have the battlefield in this one here, which is unfortunate because we just didn't have access.
Trapping Grounds, but it's so blurry, I don't know what it does. But I can read the legend out for you. It's obviously green and yellow. It's the Green Father legend. When you conquer or hold, you may exhaust me to replace that battlefield with a brush battlefield token, which is bird, cat, dog, poro, and Ivern units. Each have +1 might in brush, and it can be swapped back when scored. So it's like an additional battlefield. I'm assuming you get the token of that in the Ivern pre-Rift deck, but I'm not sure that's necessarily true, but I would hope that's the case.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of fun, right? It's kind of hard to read, but you got cats, you got dogs, you got poros, you got birds, you got everything you need here, right? And I think that's kind of cool. Crimson Pigeons, by the way, seems like a really cool card. It's 3/3. I have +2 might when I'm attacking with another unit. So it turns into a 3/5 as long as you're attacking with other units, which is really good. That's great stats, and you can often find a reason or a way to attack with another unit. These Menagerie style decks have always been something that I've been super interested in. And so like I'm going to play so many pre-rifts. It's kind of my favorite thing. Like I like constructed, but pre-rifts, I'm probably going to play like 4 of them for sure. Minimum 4 of them. And I'm really hoping at some point I get to play Ivern because this is the one I'm most interested in. The Yi from a power perspective, I think is very clearly good. There's no doubt about it. But this one here's the one that like I need to answer the question, is Ivern going to be great? Because I want it to be so bad.
Yeah, I'm hoping I get to sneak in and play some in Lille, honestly. Like, if they're doing like some creator sealed in Lille, I wanted to play like the main event on the Friday, like the big sort of similar thing to a skirmish, but I don't think I'll be able to pass up the opportunity for some Unleashed sealed. I've got the Trapping Grounds battlefield text here. It's when you conquer here, if you assign 3 or more excess damage, play a 1 might bird unit token with deflect.
If you're assigned 3 excess damage?
If you assign 3 or more
if
excess
you
damage.
assign. That might be hard. I don't know if we have, we don't really have Assault here, do we? I mean, everything's blurry as hell, but I don't think we have Assault. We have Shield, we got Tank. So yeah, like hitting that excess damage. I mean, I guess the Crimson Pigeons with that added power, then bringing it in with something else could do it. But yeah, that's an interesting call here. Now, I do like the Ultra Soft Pro is kind of interesting because it's like a Vanguard armory of birds, right? Which is kind of cool, especially since birds have deflect. I'm starting to wonder, like, how powerful is those deflects gonna be? Like, you know, because if you think about like the Victor tokens, like just the standard recruits, they don't have deflect, but they're still extremely problematic. But no one really casts spells on them, right?
Not always, but like Bellows Breath, for example, can be like a really good counter card to the Victor tokens, whereas on this, not so much going to be the case. But it is true, like it's not super typical that you would target tokens. I imagine in like Victor Mirrors, not that I've played any, that probably comes up quite a bit. But yeah, I think even just the birds, like just being 1 might and obviously being the bird is important for Ivern in particular. Yeah. So they're definitely going to be solid here, but it's also a battlefield your opponent is very likely to be able to make use of. So I'm not sure it's the best battlefield in this one.
Of course. Now, my man, that is going to wrap up the discussion about the pre-rift decks. And we need to now discuss what you've been doing to prepare for Lille, for Spirit Forge, but of course, the post-ban meta. You've been playing a ton of Riftbound games in preparation of Lille. This is exactly what you did in preparation for Bologna. Yeah. And we'll say that was particularly successful for you, my man. So tell me, what has your prep looked like for Lille, and also how have you felt about the bans and the meta afterwards? Specifically, you haven't actually touched on this yet. What do you think about the bans?
I think the bans are great. Big fan. I think I heard some rumors about what the bans were going to be, and I was pretty happy with the sound of them, but Fight or Flight wasn't one that was sort of like on my radar. And when I saw that Fight or Flight was also in the mix, I'm extremely happy. Even though like I'm someone that was playing 3 Fight or Flights, right? I liked the card a lot, but it was so broken. Like it just does everything. You could use it on your own units. You could use it offensively. You can use it in your own turn. You can hide it. Like that card had no business also being hidden. I think probably a Scrap Heap going, I'm a huge fan of as well. I think that card was just giving decks too much consistency and too much draw power. Also making Zorn Warrens like too generically good, I think, as well. Like Zorn Warrens is actually seeing a lot of play post Scrap Heap ban with like these other battlefields being banned. So I think that if Scrap Heap was still in the game, it would be quite problematic. Like everybody would be rocking triple Scrap Heap, I think. The Draven champion ban, I think, is a really interesting way of doing it. I thought they might like sort of errata Draven. Draven still seems good. And I think actually that deck not having this like really, really, really good champion makes a big difference. So overall, Alex, I'm super happy. And I think probably the ban I'm the biggest fan of is Obelisk of Power going. I was looking at some data before on Rift decks. And according to Rift decks, Obelisk of Power was in like 98% of decks.
Wow.
Which I don't know if I totally agree with that. Like I think that sounds a bit high, but it was everywhere, and it was a battlefield which was kind of like really changing the dynamic of a lot of the flow of games. Like decks can get away with not playing 2-drops and all this sort of stuff. I really like, probably as I'm generally speaking a bit of an aggro player, I like that battlefield's gone as well. I think it like gives aggro a bit more of a real aggressive feel to it. Overall, big fan. I've been really enjoying the game. I think that the meta is super diverse and open. Maybe I would have liked a couple of extra cards being thrown in, but I also like that they were sort of like quite bold with the bans. They didn't play it too safe. I think it's better to just be bold with these things. Probably the other like 3 cards which were on a lot of people's radar to maybe get banned was Dazzling Aurora, which is probably like preemptive at Unleashed, because there's this new like 12 cost dragon which seems ridiculously broken with Aurora. It basically like, when it comes out of Aurora, it's going to be able to like target 3 battlefields or something and basically kill a unit, or maybe 2 units. Can't remember exactly what it does, but it's very, very good with Aurora. So that's one thing we were maybe expecting. The Stellarcorn Herder for me is the one card I probably would have liked to have seen gone. I think that the card's a little bit ridiculous in Aurelia in particular. And also Brian here, Thundersong was like another one that a lot of people would like to see go. For me, Stellarcorn Herder would have been my top pick, but overall I think the bans are great and I'm enjoying the game a lot.
Yeah, Thundersong's kind of like a weird tech card that kind of makes playing the game harder or impossible, depending on what situation is being used in, right? Which it could be a little too far into you're playing a card game, but you don't get to play cards, like, you know what I mean? So I can absolutely see that being a feel-bad card that probably eventually does get banned. It just doesn't feel like it's in the spirit of what Riftbound is. Like a card game where you can't play cards is kind of fascinating. But with that being said, okay, so obviously the meta has shifted quite a bit. You've been preparing for Lille. Before we get into that, I would like your take, though. Errata versus bans. Are you more of a fan of one or the other? Are you happy with the fact they chose not to errata and just went with bans? What's your take on errata versus bans?
A much bigger fan of bans. In both of our backgrounds are in digital card games, you and I. In a digital card game, obviously you can just errata and literally change the text on a card, no problem. And you can, totally redesign cards. You can't do that in a physical card game. So we do see the occasional errata. Like, I think realistically, in an ideal world, Riot would probably want 0 erratas. But and I would expect that over time we get less and less of them. I do think it's like a teething issue kind of thing. But yeah, I think it's really good to just ban cards. Like, don't rewrite the text on them. That's just too confusing. You should just be able to read the card and know what it does, right?
And without revealing your spicy sauce that you're working on for Lille, do you want to give us a little bit of a breakdown of how your testing's gone, what you're seeing in the meta, and what you think could potentially be one of the decks to target going into Lille?
Yeah, so I think that like Kai'Sa and Aurelia are probably like the top 2 decks, would be my gut feeling. Probably both in terms of strength and play rate. But interestingly, like there's some pretty good counters to them. Like I think Orange is like the meta kind of like moves in ebbs and flows, right? And I think like the obvious picks are Kai'Sa and Aurelia, but then you start thinking like, okay, what decks counter Kai'Sa and Aurelia quite well? So immediately I think that like Orange comes to mind, right? Like Ruin Runner in particular is very, very difficult for Kai'Sa to deal with. Also Aurelia lost fight or flight, so like holding strategies like Master Yi might have a bit more of a chance.
That mid-range Master Yi, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you look back at set 1 Master Yi, there was like a lot of Aurora decks and then there was mid-range decks. And by the end of set 1, they were like a hybrid, right? People would sideboard out the Aurora or sideboard in the Aurora based on the matchup. So maybe you go that route. I think if I was to play Aurora, which I think is very good at the moment, I would probably, well, in fact, I would definitely go with Master Yi, because you have Desert School, which is like this 2-cost, repeat 2, get a Sand Soldier unit token, which like actually being able to contest the board with Master Yi, who gets that +2, without making your Aurora worse, I think is super interesting. So I think Yi's going to be really popular. I think that Victor is going to be really popular. Draven just won an event in New Zealand this weekend and still looks quite good. And then I think there's just a lot of like fringe tier 2 decks, which will still be like not necessarily weaker than the top decks. It's like it's hard to tell at the moment because it all comes down to like matchup spread, right? Like what deck has the best matchups overall. But like decks like Lucian and Fiora, I think are big winners from the bans. Like basically orange and yellow decks in general, because they didn't really get hit by anything. So I'm excited. Obviously, for the regional qualifiers, it's not just about trying to win the whole thing, but it's also about thinking about which are the best chances for metal cards. So most likely, I'm just going to play Teemo again. I've got to be honest, Alex. I'm not even going to hide it. So if you're going to Lille, and you want to play Teemo, you're going to be up against me. I'm just trying to scare everybody off the Teemo, mate, to give myself the best odds.
So just trying to thin the crowd, eh?
Yeah, why not?
The master of Teemo Bologna is back for Lille, confirmed. My man, I can't wait to see what you cook up. I mean, I already know what you're cooking up. And, it's spicy because you know that Joe's going to be bringing the spice. My man, we actually have an exciting few weeks here coming in Riftbound because we have the full Chinese release on April 10th. I'm sure we're going to start to see some skirmishes, not skirmishes, but we're going to see some events. We're going to get some stats. Things will start trickling in about how certain legends are working, cards are working. So it's going to be really fun to break that down. This will be the last time that we get to do this in advance of an English launch because coming with Vendetta is going to be a synchronized launch, which I'm actually super excited for. Worldwide hype for Riftbound launches is going to be huge. Joe, any closing words for the podcast?
No, just thanks everyone for watching, and looking forward to more Unleashed content. I think next week the plan is to look at like all the best, like all the legends, and really start diving into set 3. It's a really good time to be a Riftbound player, Alex, and I'm very glad to be here with you to talk about it every week.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you so much for supporting us. As always, if you'd like to support the podcast, the best way you can do it for absolutely free is hitting that like button and making sure that you are subscribed. I know it's a bunch of YouTuber cringe to say, but it actually does make a huge difference. We appreciate you all. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on that next one.